given a diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder, at the time I had a bachelor's degree. I was told by the psychiatrist that it was a good thing that I had my bachelor's degree because now that I'm sick, it would be really difficult to achieve that. As happens to so many people within the system, if you disagree with the label that they're ascribing to you, you often get told that you just lack insight or that you're in denial.
I woke up in the middle of the night. I was holding my hand up in a position like this. And now I call it a mudra. I'd never heard of the term mudra. It was giving off a white light. It was glowing. And as I looked in the mirror and saw my hand glowing, it immediately flashed into my mind that I'm a reincarnation of Buddha. And then I had this second instantaneous insight that I was also the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, and that I had been reincarnated in this third form to bring the peoples of the world together. And I then set out to write a new holy book. And I spent like 5 days, hardly sleeping, hardly eating, writing this holy book. I have kept a copy, and now when I look at it, it's a very 60s hippie-ish vision of people living in communes. I was all caught up in it, and then really had copies of this book printed and distributed it in the streets for about 2 months. All I did was crash with them, sleep in their living rooms. So I didn't have to proselytize. I didn't talk about this. I had actually pretty stimulating conversations with my friends around things that I was reading. Now that I distributed the book, I started to read things by Jung and Joseph Campbell. If one looked at it more archetypally, within Jungian archetypes, Christ is an archetype of the ideal or perfect self. John Perry's work, and he actually did open up a center here in San Francisco where people who had experiences like my own could be allowed to go through these experiences without medication. But his idea of psychosis was that it's compensatory. So I had lived a very, very aspiritual life. And I think the spiritual side of me had overwhelmed me, just sort of grabbed control of me and said, pay attention, which in effect I have been doing for the rest of my life.
So suddenly, my body fell limp, and I took a deep breath and released liberally. And the exhale did not revert into an inhale. All at once, I felt weightless and airy as a bright, warm, and loving energy enveloped me. This was not a dream. It was real. Friendly voices cheered me on. You're almost home. You can do it. We're waiting for you. The voices were so familiar, like those of old friends forgotten on the front lines of a battle at war. And as I gravitated toward them, the troughs of my life seemed like old nightmares, a little surreal and painful still, but also rapidly fading in memory. You did it! You made it home! My friends shouted with approval and roared in joy, in melodic, angelic voices that sounded eternal and unconditionally loving.
In 1982, when I was 29, I'd gotten myself in a situation where I was trying to do too much, and I'd gone to Israel and Europe and came back, and I couldn't sleep, didn't sleep. And so I subsequently found out that anybody who doesn't sleep will, I like the word crazy, the clinical word is psychotic, will go psychotic. And so that happened to me. And when I had told them I had gone to Harvard Law School, that confirmed I was delusional. And they told me that like I said, I would never practice law again. That the best I could hope for was to take these debilitating drugs for the rest of my life. And I had fallen asleep for just, I think, a second. And I've had this happen to me since. And I woke up and the devil was coming down the hall after me. And so I was on the second floor and I looked out the window and there's this lawn down there and a sidewalk and I knew how to do a parachute landing fall. And so I figured, and I was in my underwear, by the way, and it was 1 a.m. in the middle of June. So I jumped out the window and did a perfectly good parachute landing fall, didn't hurt myself a bit, ran across the street into this parking lot, this school parking lot, and I was looking over my shoulder for the devil. So I was spinning around, and so that was logical, right? Running away from the devil. Anyway, so they came in a paddy wagon, put me in a straitjacket and shot me up with something to sleep.
My first extraordinary experience took place in Greece in the Mediterranean Sea. It was a near-death experience, which included time travel. You see, I went to take a swim in twilight, and I saw or had a vision of a sailboat, and my brother was on that sailboat. That was my vision, that my brother was on the sailboat and he was in trouble and I needed to rescue him. So I swam towards the sailboat, and I swam so far that I finally lost sight of the shore, and I lost sight of the sailboat eventually. The following week, after I was hospitalized, I did not know it at the time, but my brother truly had an accident in the Pacific Ocean on the West Coast, and I was across the world. So that's a mystery to me, hence the time travel. After the near-death experience in the sea, I was still at sea and had a mystical experience. I was swimming and floating, and I heard voices of the collective, and I saw visions of ancient Greece. I saw the mythopoetic realm, as Jung would say. I saw ancient Greek philosophers, gods, and goddesses, and I felt blissful. I felt as though I was being carried to the land of my ancestors. I was not scared of dying or of death. I was supported, and I felt I was ready to cross over since my ancestors were calling me home.
2021, again in July 2022. So I was also practicing as a health coach while I was in Dubai. And during my practice as well, I was getting these feelings that when I am helping people, somehow it's helping me to understand things better. I was like, what is this going on? There is some deep connections. I started to have some synchronicities, which is hard to explain. It was like I would suddenly have something which will make me feel so good, so ecstatic, as if something is opening up in me. My cells of my body, they are very happy. Something just I would feel very happy about. That something is happening in me which is very happy, which is very good. And there were things happening within me which I could feel, things, I couldn't figure out what it is, but I was just feeling very happy. Something good is happening, something special is happening. I belong to Sikh community. I'm not very religious. I've never been very religious, but yes, I do believe I have faith in God. It felt that I'm called for something. It's a calling that I have to follow. To me, it was like the community is in lockdown and I'm trying to save them. So how I understand this experience is that my psyche was going through some shift. I was not able to make sense of it, what's going on. But there was a tremendous amount of energy that my body was not able to handle. The energy was trying to do something. It was making a shift in my mind, or I was building these stories maybe that, I'm called upon something, or I was not able to explain it to my husband what's going on. And he was feeling that something is wrong with me. I was not able to eat anything. I was not able to sleep properly. I was in distress. Our modern day system, it lacks that for people who go through these processes.
Yes.
They look weird to normal people.
Absolutely, yes.
Like many of my clients, I also felt trepidation about speaking with a helping professional regarding the experiences I had had, which had include visions, had include audio communication, a lot of mystical experiences I had in this acute period of time. And I did not feel safe or comfortable having conversations with a helping professional regarding these experiences.
And what was so-called psychosis like? It was like the line between my inner world and my outer world dissolved until everything was a lucid dream happening within my mind. And at the same time, I was the whole external world too. I was you and every other person experiencing one consciousness from different angles. I followed a series of synchronicities or divine coincidences, these signs on the pavement, birds that would hop from branch to branch, until I came to the realization that I was the next version of Jesus Christ himself. But whereas Jesus, when he was faced with ideas about grandiosity in the desert, submitted in humility, I was like, okay, this is all a lucid dream and I'm the next version of Jesus, watch this. And I decided to put on a show. But law enforcement didn't like my show, and they arrested me because they thought I was on LSD, which I wasn't. I was just having a manic episode. My psychiatrist was telling me, you've got a lifelong incurable disability. Sorry. You may want to lower your expectations about what's possible. My whole experience was completely spiritual.
49% of Americans have reported having a significant spiritual or religious experience that changed their worldview, that changed them. That's a significant number. That's a significant number of people that have never talked about their experiences because they're afraid of being ridiculed or shamed or having the sacredness of their experience taken away from them. Very often, they're very difficult to describe. And when you do try to describe these experiences, you cannot convey the actual experience.
7 years ago, in 2016, I had a very profound experience that completely transformed my life. It's very long to explain, but what happened is I went to bed one night on February the 19th, 2016, fell asleep, had a very, very profound lucid dream. And the next morning when I woke up, I was flooded, when I opened my eyes and I looked around the room, I was flooded with this incredible sense of unity, of oneness, of complete interconnection with the universe, something that I had never had even a glimpse of before in my life. It was a very profound and powerful moment for me. And I was filled with this incredible sense of unconditional love, again, a love that I'd never experienced in my life, despite having been brought up in a very loving family, surrounded by love. It was something completely, completely different. And I was just immersed in this sense that the universe is completely alive. The walls around me, the bed sheets that were, cocooning me still in my bed, the glass of water on my bedside, everything seemed to carry this lifelike quality, this energy. And I realized that that was the energy that pervaded the entire universe, that the universe is essentially alive, that it's intelligent, and that it's benevolent at its very basis. And the experience was not a thought experience, it was a very cellular, embodied experience. And it was the most, like I said, the most profound, beautiful, stunning experience of my life. Many energetic phenomena occurred. I had a sense that light was emanating from my heart space, my third eye, and the crown of my head. And bearing in mind that I had not been exposed to anything pertinent to the esoteric or the spiritual before my experience. In fact, the night before I went to bed and I was a complete atheist, and then the next morning I woke up and I realized that there was more than meets the two eyes and the five senses. Again, this is my own experience of it, but it's a knowing. It's not a believing. It's not a thought. It's an inner knowing.
Hi, my name is Mary Fulp, and I'm here to share that in January of 2023, I had the most amazing spiritual experience that I didn't even know was possible until it happened. And as a result, the people around me reacted in a way that surprised me at the time because they just didn't understand what was going on. I just want you to know that I didn't know that this kind of experience was possible until it happened to me. And it was the most uplifting, clear, beautiful spiritual experience where I felt incredibly close to God, like He was with me. and working through me in such a beautiful, powerful way. And it was interesting at the time how it was indescribable to people who hadn't experienced it. And as a result, I was involuntarily hospitalized and treated with an inhumane lack of dignity, which I am now taking to court, and I'm going to, my purpose is to shed truth and light into these dark places of how we care for others when we don't understand what they're going through.
As a highly sensitive person, though, when I started to try to address my fibromyalgia-like pain through the prayer, and then also that kind of led me to doing all sorts of other healing modalities, the pain meds, acupuncture, chiropractic treatments, supplements, meditation, yoga, Reiki, etc. I felt that these opened a doorway or a portal to experience a flooding of STEs. Really what would be described as an emergent spiritual experience or a spiritual crisis. But if it floods in too fast, which I don't think is necessarily all of God. I think sometimes there is spiritual energy that's out there that wants to almost sabotage our spiritual quest or our spiritual journey in a way that causes us to, look like we're nothing more than crazy. I was met with a lot of disbelief, and unfortunately, I did not have the best coping skills at the time. So I would try to convince people that these spiritual experiences were real. So I would convince them by just yelling, "Believe me, you've got to believe me." Well, that doesn't work very well. You definitely look sick. You look angry. You look like you're difficult, that you are, just belligerent, that kind of stuff.
My name is Colleen DeJoseph. I am a transpersonal psychologist as well as a psychotherapist. I entered into the field of mental health because I had a spiritual emergency. Well, I would consider it a spiritual emergence in 2011 that turned into a spiritual emergency due to the traumatic contact that I had with the mental health system. And that sort of motivated me to get involved in the field of mental health to hopefully bring about some change. And in doing so, I found out about the field of transpersonal psychology that has been studying experiences like the one I had since the 1960s. And so I was motivated to enter into that field and do some research around people who get misdiagnosed with a pathological label as a result of an anomalous spiritual experience. So my study was the first to look at what the impact of having a spiritual experience misdiagnosed by the Western medical model of psychiatry is. Because there is no spiritual competency or spiritual training within the mental health system. So if you go into a hospital or you're involuntarily brought to a hospital and you say that you're having a spiritual experience, you're automatically relegated to the psychosis category and given usually one of two labels or three labels. There's either bipolar 1, schizophrenia, or schizoaffective disorder.
When I was 30 years old and traveling alone in India, I entered into a mystic state of consciousness. I came to know the interconnectedness of all things of the world and understand God as an omnipresent source of all creation. I was very overwhelmed by this. I didn't understand what was happening and completely absorbed in this state. When I returned to Canada, I entered into the psych system. There I was told that my experiences of God and interconnectedness of all things were symptomatic of psychosis. And this puzzled me and was very harmful because my experience of unity consciousness was one of the best things that's ever happened to me, just to know that we are all loved and that everything is interconnected. is really a valuable aspect of my life. I suffered moral injury due to my mistreatment in the psych system, and it took me quite a while to overcome the feelings of being dismissed and pathologized.
So STEs, or spiritually transformative experiences, can look and feel like many different things to different people. There's no one size fits all. It is a journey, an inner journey that with these experiences that are highly individualized and differ from person to person because everyone's unique life story has different cofactors and different context involved. It can be both extremely empowering and positive while also being messy and discombobulating and scary.
And I remember praying and calling out to God. I just said, take this pain away, take this fear away. I have no idea how I'm going to function to complete my master's and etc. And literally, this is the moment. In an instant, it felt like there was a lightning bolt that struck me right in my forehead. I can't explain it any other way. And all of a sudden, the pain was gone, the fear was gone, and it was like this miraculous moment. And I really didn't think a whole lot about it. It was just, this is cool.